Biographer Philip Carlo makes a big deal about Richard Ramirez hanging out with his cousin Miguel Valles, known as Mike. Ramirez infamously witnessed Mike murder his wife Josefina. This is cited as the catalyst for him becoming a killer 9 years later. But was he really there? Let's examine the available evidence. This is Richard describing the event to Philip Carlo.
It was a sunny day, about 3 p.m. The incident happened.
He told Carlo he saw it in slow motion. This newspaper article said the incident happened at 8:30 p.m., not 3. When Miguel was convicted of manslaughter, it was revealed that there were no witnesses. This is how Richard described the aftermath about 20 years later.
Mike's mother called my father and my mother a week or two later, asking them if they would go into the house and get some things for him. Me and my father went inside. There was like particles floating in the air. Everything had a musty, bloody odor to it. I walked around and I found Josie's purse, and I saw her driver's license. I saw her picture, and it struck me that she was dead. It was a weird feeling that I knew that she was dead.
The transcript in Philip Carlo's biography differs slightly, but notice how it is much more detailed than the murder itself. He recalls dust particles, sunlight, smells, and objects. Those sensory descriptions make this memory seem authentic and traumatic. But the killing itself and the slow-motion description is like a cliché. It lacks the same detail, and he moves on swiftly. The Valles family lived in the center dwelling. It is unlikely that Richard escaped their house undetected. The houses are connected with small passages between them. Everyone would have heard the gunfire, and everyone would have seen Richard running. Family and friends made declarations about the incident for Richard's appeals. The first was his brother Ignacio. This looks like Richard told Ignacio he was there but refused to give details when pressed. Next was his friend Edward Millam. Edward mistakenly refers to Miguel as Richard's uncle and that Richard was in the room when Josefina was shot. Ultimately, Edward only had Richard's word for it. His fear and trauma were undoubtedly real, but there's no evidence he really did witness this. This next description is very exaggerated. His sister Rosa said that he claimed to see brain matter spattered all over the place. Rosa even says her father took Richard to the Valles home right away. While Richard's fear was real, this description is grossly exaggerated and doesn't fit with his later recollection with Carlo, where there are no gruesome details. Josefina died 11 days after she was shot. If there was brain matter all over the floor, she would have died instantly. Richard's parents later took him to the house to collect items. This is when he would have seen blood but not brain matter. This is where the real trauma came from. He derived no pleasure from seeing the murder. He was scared, agitated, and very upset. There is no reason to believe this contributed to him developing violent tendencies. It is possible that Richard imagined he was at the scene. When he was 16, just a year after the incident, a psychiatrist declared that he struggled to separate fantasy from reality and exhibited weaknesses in reasoning. Philip Carlo's Josefina story is dramatic in the same way as his fictionalized depictions of the Night Stalker crimes. He gives dead people dialogue and thoughts. As if he wasn't dramatic enough, his story is dramatized on documentaries and snowballs.
What are you going to do with that, Mike? Huh? I'm not scared of you, Mike. You're a loser.
Younger generations of Richard's family add their own details, like his niece Shelly on Monster in My Family.
One day, my Uncle Richie was hanging out with Miguel, and his wife pissed off Miguel, and, he wasn't all there because he had just came back from Vietnam.
This is not accurate. Miguel returned from Vietnam in 1971. He had been home for 4 years when he killed his wife. What is not well known is that Miguel was waiting for a space at Rusk State Mental Hospital before the murder. He had been found incompetent to stand trial after committing another crime.
He went in the bedroom and he shot her. Miguel made him look at his dead wife. And he's like, this is what you do to a bitch.
Where did Shelly hear this? Nobody has ever said this is what happened.
He left her there in the bed, bloody, and they went for a ride.
Again, where did she get this from? She told a different version 2 years later on Killer in My Family.
He was scared. He hid behind the couch, and he didn't know whether to run or what to do. He was in shock. To the point, yeah, it just really scared him. And then afterwards they went, and that was the first time that he got high, smoked marijuana.
Instead of Miguel taking Richard for a drive, Shelly blames the murder on her uncle's descent into drug abuse.
And then after that, it led on to another drug and another drug. But it wasn't because he wanted to. It was just he didn't know how to cope with it. He didn't tell anybody. He held all that inside.
Shelly's made-up story is then repeated and embellished by a talking head psychologist on the show who seems to know nothing about Ramirez's mental health background.
What's really shocking about Richard's behaviour is after his cousin has shot his wife, instead of leaving the house and screaming for help or calling an ambulance, he goes instead with his cousin and smokes a joint. That kind of behaviour is not consistent with somebody who is terrified of what has just played out. So again, we're giving this little indication that Richard has a very dark association with things that he enjoys.
So what we have is a traumatized teenager lying that he was witness to murder, a biographer embellishing it, family members adding their own details, and finally, TV psychologists laying more on. The truth gets distorted then buried. It is then repeated as part of the myth of Richard Ramirez.